This is an officially licensed Nintendo Switch controller from Power A that they call the Enhanced Wired Controller. I was particularly excited about this because it is Super Mario themed. As you can see, it has a nice Mario print on it. It does have some limitations, most notably being a wired-only controller. It does not support wireless play in any way, but it has a few unique advantages, like it has a 3.5mm audio jack in it. I think this might be the only Switch controller I know of that has this feature, as well as what they call mappable buttons on the back, which might not be something I ever use, but if you're interested, that's something. So let's go ahead and get into this unboxing here. Here's the actual controller itself right there on the front. You can see it is very Super Mario stylized. You have Mario on the left hand side of the stick, as well as the power-up mushroom superstar and coin on the right side. I know there's probably very specific names for those power-ups that I always forget, and I really like the kind of red gradient design across the controller that you can kind of see there. Of course, it has the same button layout as all of the other Nintendo Switch controllers, except it has a D-pad instead of just 4 buttons like the Joy-Cons have, so it's more similar to the Pro Controller in that way. This is a Super Mario licensed product. And at the bottom, you can see it is a wired controller only. It's not wireless, but it does have headset input, which I think is probably the biggest seller for this, for me at least. The most exciting part of this, I'll explain in a few minutes. It also has mappable buttons on the back. There's 3 extra buttons on the back we'll see in a second. You can see it is a wired controller across the side and Nintendo Switch branding. And down in the corner, you can see it is a Power A product, not an official Nintendo product, but it is packaged pretty much the same way as every other Nintendo Switch accessory. On the left side, we can see just another view of the top of the controller there with the Nintendo Switch logo. And on the left side, you can see the plug for attaching the controller to the console, as well as the triggers and bumpers, which are much larger than they are on the Joy-Con, so that's nice. I measured to see if those triggers have like an analog squeezy feel or if they're clicky like the Joy-Con. I know the Switch itself doesn't support analog input on the triggers, so it won't make a difference there, but it'll make a difference to just how the triggers feel. And there are those mappable buttons I was talking about. You can see them on the sides and center. On the back of the controller, there's all the features highlighted. You can see it has a 10-foot cable for attaching wired to the dock itself, because you cannot use this controller wirelessly. There's they advertise the anti-friction rings on the joysticks. They do look like much nicer joysticks than the Joy-Cons themselves. Also, the ergonomic design. No batteries required because it's a wired controller. Here you can see they're calling them advanced gaming buttons. They just have 2 buttons. 2 extra buttons on the handles and 1 in the center there that you can map to certain commands. I might not ever use that. Personally, my favorite is there's a 3.5mm audio port on the bottom. It says game and chat via headset. That's kind of a lie because you have to be connected to the Nintendo Switch Online app on your phone in order to voice chat and listen to your game at the same time. But this will have the game audio out of your Switch, which is a really nice feature because no other Switch controller has anything like this. I think the main reason for this is because Nintendo doesn't actually allow you to send audio information wirelessly to the controller. But since this is a wired controller and it plugs into the USB port on the Switch, and Switch already supports USB headphones, it just treats this like USB headphones as well, and it's able to send the audio through the cable there, which I think is awesome because a lot of times I like using headphones with my TV. I'm able to connect my AirPods wirelessly to my Apple TV, but I have to get a ridiculously long extender to wire some earbuds into my Switch because you have to plug directly into the dock. But this would be nice to have that on the actual controller. We also see this is officially licensed for Nintendo Switch, as I mentioned, with all the Nintendo Switch branding on it. And here's a disclaimer of what's not in this controller. Does not support HD Rumble, IR motion controls, or Amiibo NFC. I'm assuming that by IR motion controls, it's referring to the IR motion camera thingy in the bottom of the right Joy-Con that's not used for much of anything, so that shouldn't be a big deal. We'll see when we open it up if it has any motion controls whatsoever. Also a little bit confused by does not support HD Rumble. I don't know if that means that it still has just a standard vibration motor in it and it's just missing the extra haptics for HD Rumble, or perhaps it doesn't vibrate at all. These are all questions we'll have answered once we open this thing up. There is a little tab here that you can pull open. There's kind of a magnetically sealing hinge here, which is cool, which opens up to show clear plastic and you can see the actual controller there. It is exactly what you're getting. It's a little bit more orange than it in real life than it appears on the box, but it's still really nice. I really like the gradient coloring to it. On the left side, you can see just an overview of the features. I'm not going to read that whole paragraph. And there's somebody using it. Wow. On the top is just Nintendo Switch branding, and on the bottom is the PowerA logo, because this is a PowerA product and not a Nintendo product technically. But based on the amount of Nintendo Switch branding on the box, I think Nintendo probably had pretty heavy involvement in the development of this product, or pretty heavy approval in it. There are 2 plastic seals on either side of the top of the box, which can be cut with a knife in order to open up the top of the box. I lied. There's a 3rd plastic tab here. Once we have all 3 of the plastic tabs cut, we can go ahead and open the box. It opens like this, and you can see the controller is inside on a sliding plastic tray and can be removed like so. The box is now empty. We can set it aside for now. As soon as we pull the controller out of the box, you can see hidden underneath the plastic is the little user manual and the 10-foot cable. Let's check out the user guide first. It's one of these unfolding paper things I absolutely hate, but that's okay. It looks pretty dang detailed, actually. So on the top here, you can see a diagram on both sides of all of the components of the controller. And versus English, it gives you instructions on how to set up, which is pretty simple, how to use, and how to assign those special buttons on the back. Then just some regulatory information, and it says the same thing in many different languages. So setting the manual aside, the second thing that fell out at the bottom is the cable. As you can see, we get the cable in this Velcro tie, which is really, really nice, actually. I'll keep that for future use. It's a pretty long cable, but on one side, it appears to have some form of micro USB, which it's unfortunate that it's not USB-C, since most other Switch accessories are USB-C. Then on this end, we have a standard USB-A plug 2.0 to plug into the Nintendo Switch dock. That's really nice. It has a cable tie on it, though. I was not expecting it to be that nice. Okay, so taking out the actual controller here, I'm going to try to pull it out by the control stick, which is probably a bad idea, but I just did it. So taking a look at the controller itself here, you can see it's pretty much the same button layout as the standard Nintendo Switch Pro Controller. So you have these 2 analog sticks, right and left, which have a lot more travel than the standard Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, which is very good. Of course, both clickable. The D-pad is a nice and mushy D-pad. Not too mushy, but also not too tactile either. It's a nice D-pad, I would say. And your 4 ABXY buttons are kind of mushy and clicky. Something more like the buttons on the Wii controller, rather than the really clicky and tactile clickiness of the standard Joy-Con controllers and the Nintendo 3DS. I'm just comparing to gaming things I've actually used. I believe the Wii U gamepad was also mushy like this, but I don't exactly remember. This should be much more comfortable for most people. Also, the bumpers and triggers, same thing. These triggers actually do have some travel. They're definitely not analog by any means. They're definitely still clicky, but they're more of a mushy clicky. Same with those shoulder buttons with a lot more travel, so they'll be a lot more comfortable for playing games than your Joy-Con controllers. Then plus and minus, same thing. You also have a home button and the capture button, and I believe that's going to be an LED to let you know that the thing is plugged in and functioning properly. On the bottom, 3.5mm headphone jack, plug in your headphones, probably my favorite feature of this. On the back, PowerA logo, some regulatory information, and the 3 special buttons I'm talking about. These special buttons are much more tactile and clicky. They feel pretty much exactly the same as the buttons on the Joy-Con, which is a little bit unfortunate, but since I'm probably never going to use them, it's fine. I've also noticed it's really easy to accidentally bump these buttons while just holding the controller and using it normally. These 2 at least. So that's something you want to keep in mind. The front here is like almost a glossy finish with the print on it, whereas the back is like completely matte plastic, so it's a different texture and also solid red. It feels really nice in the hand though, I will say that. They weren't kidding about the ergonomically pleasing. It's much better ergonomics than the Joy-Con grip. On the top you can see the most glossy part of the whole thing is this front gray plate here. Sorry, that's not gray, that's tan. I don't know my colors, apparently. And there is where your micro USB port plugs in for connecting to the console. Now, as you can see, there's actually a little notch in there that lines up with a little notch that's also on this plug at the top, which guides it into place so you don't have to worry about which way you're putting it in, because if you put it in this way, it just won't go in because the notches don't light up, and it guides it all the way in, so you don't have to be fishing around looking for the hole, the port. It just goes right in. So that's really, really nice touch, actually. I also love they put the cable tie on this. Overall, just with this unboxing already, there's just a lot more attention to detail that went into this than I would have expected, with the included cable tie and the way that the controller plugs in and stuff, and the way all the buttons and stuff feel. I'm interested to plug this in and see how it works playing some games. So you just connect this cable into one of the empty USB ports on your Switch console, and then we're ready to go. So first of all, pressing and holding the home button here does not turn on the console like it does with wireless Nintendo Switch controllers. So you have to either have a wireless controller, like a set of Joy-Con, nearby to turn on your console, or you're gonna have to walk all the way over there and hit the power button yourself, which is a little frustrating. But once you do have the console on, the white LED in the center indicates that the controller is receiving power, and you can use it just like you would any other Switch controller here. And the Switch recognizes it as a USB controller. I thought Super Mario Galaxy through Super Mario 3D All-Stars would be a good game to check out the limits of this controller. And first of all, unfortunately I found that no IR motion controls. What they mean by that is no motion controls at all. So as you can see, if I press R on the controller, there is nothing at all. There's no recognition of motion here. I kind of figured that would be the case, but yeah, no motion controls whatsoever with this thing.
It's me, Mario.
I thought Super Mario 64 would be a good game to try out the vibration, since Super Mario 64 does not have any HD rumble functionality whatsoever, to see if this thing does have any kind of vibration motor, and it does not. If I press plus to start, usually that results in a vibration when I'm using Joy-Con. That does not happen. And if I press A, that usually also results in a vibration, but no vibration at all from this controller. This does not have any haptics whatsoever. I also tried out some other games, and none of them received any haptics with this controller, so that's the unfortunate part. No amiibo support is pretty self-explanatory, but I think that'll definitely be the smaller of the three turnoffs. I think not being able to turn on the system with this remote, and more importantly, not having HD rumble or motion controls is going to be the two biggest set-offs for this. Overall, I don't mind the no motion controls too much, because a lot of games don't use motion controls at all. So I can just grab my Joy-Con when I'm using a game with motion controls and just use this controller for other games. The big turnoff for me is the having no haptics, no vibration. It just feels kind of empty when you're really used to a game having vibrations at certain points, and it just doesn't. It just kind of makes the controller feel kind of empty and lifeless, especially games that take really good advantage of the haptics on Switch. It's just unfortunate that they're not here with this controller. That's probably the only thing that'll keep me from using this controller a lot of the time, because overall it feels great. All of the buttons have what I would say is pretty much perfect tactility, at least for a Switch controller. I love the range of motion on the analog sticks, and they feel really comfortable. It is very ergonomically pleasing in the hand. Overall, I love the controller. It's just those missing features that are a turnoff, specifically the rumble. So I have a pair of 3.5mm headphone jack Apple earpods here that we're going to use to try out the headphone port in this controller. Here we are. Just plugs right into the bottom there. And I can immediately hear some audio through the earpods, just a little bit of background static. So if I go ahead and open up quick settings here, you can see the audio is in USB mode now. So no more audio is coming through the TV. We can adjust the volume here, and that is indeed coming through the earbuds. There's a little bit of a static with it. That's kind of unfortunate. I'm gonna hop into 3D All-Stars because that's what I was using to test the audio before. There's still a little bit of a background static, a lot more than I would like, but I can indeed hear the game. It's here. Bomb on Battlefield, can definitely hear it. There is unfortunately quite a bit of background static that I'm hearing while scrolling through the Switch menu here, and I was even hearing it while playing Super Mario 64. Of course, that is a much older game with an older soundtrack, so I kind of want to jump into something I've been playing more recently, just to see how a newer soundtrack sounds. Overall, though, there is a lot more static than there is plugging directly into the Switch, and I use these exact same earbuds when I'm using my Switch in handheld mode, which I do a whole lot while out and about places, so I have an idea of how they sound plugged directly into the system. There's nothing bad about the overall sound quality. I think the sound quality coming out of this controller is about the same as the sound quality that I get plugging directly into the Switch. The main problem is there is just a little bit of background static that never goes away even when the music is playing. So it's a little bit of a disappointment, but at least there's a plug-in directly to this controller. That's something that no other Switch controller has. While I don't plan on ever using these buttons on the back personally, since it's a main feature of this controller, I guess I should show it off. So basically, you press and hold the center buttons until it starts blinking slowly, the white LED. Then press one of the buttons, so I'm going to press right on the D-pad, and you can see that makes that start blinking faster. Once it blinks faster, press one of the two buttons on the bottom. So I will press the right side bumper to set that. Now you can see when I press that right side special gaming button, is what they call it, I think. Then you can see that is equivalent to a right D-pad press. Overall though, I don't think I'll use this very much because like I said, it's very easy to accidentally click the button while you're just holding the controller. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if these are something you're actually going to be using. So what you have to do if you want to reset these buttons is just press and hold that till it starts blinking again, and then let go, and then press and hold again for an additional about 5 seconds until that blinking LED goes back to solid. And then as you can see, everything is reset, so pressing that bumper no longer does anything. I know getting near the end there, I probably harped a lot on some of the disadvantages of the controller, and it definitely does have plenty, but I still wanted to emphasize it's a pretty good controller for a lot of cases. If you're somebody that plays games with no motion controls and doesn't care about haptics in any way, then this will be perfectly fine. Overall, it's a very comfortable controller, very ergonomically pleasing. All of the buttons feel very, very nice. It feels much higher quality, at least the tactility of the buttons. It feels like a much higher standard of quality than the Joy-Cons. But for me, just not having the rumble kind of makes a lot of games feel empty to me. And that's really my main issue, and also not having motion controls. I can get away with that because most games don't have motion controls. It's just the lack of rumble that's frustrating for me. But again, it's still a very ergonomically pleasing controller, and I absolutely love the Mario decal on it. The print, it's excellent. So if anything, it's a great collectible item, a great item to have with my Switch and use for gaming sessions where I'm not really caring too much about the haptics. Hopefully I'll get some more time in with it and have a more full review later, maybe, who knows. For now though, thank you so much to everybody who watched, and hopefully see you guys for more videos soon.